What's up, college football fans? Sonoy Valente here with the Mean Green Show, and I'm joined here today with Eric Henry, FIU consultant, if you will. And before we get into all the FIU content, you guys know the drill. If you're a fan of college football recruiting, G5 football, and of course the transfer portal, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you agree or disagree with anything we say today, be sure to let us know in the comments down below. And all that helps the channel grow. Eric, hey, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, man, not a problem. I'm glad we could get linked up and do this, man. Always good to talk a little CUSA ball.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, really before we even get into any, football talk, I really have a question of extreme importance that Steven asked me to ask you. And I really just want to know, because, it's facts, but, why does Houston rap trump any music from Florida?
Steve is a comedian, man. This dude's a comedian. Okay, so let me go and give you the backstory on this. All right.
Okay.
I do not have an issue with Houston hip hop. All right.
Okay.
No hip hop. Steve, and for those listening, who Steve's referring to is on Twitter at QB Spotlight.
Absolutely.
Steven Hamner. Both of our that's our guy right there.
Yeah.
Steve he acts as if Houston hip hop is the be all end all of all hip hop, right? And here's my thing. I sent out a tweet about a month or two ago. I don't know how long. And I said that the highs of Houston hip hop are great, right? No one's going to hate on, UGK or
sure.
Like the highs are the highs.
Right.
But the lows, everyone is just, is Paul Wall, everyone is Mike Jones, and listen, I think Steve misconstrued this. I bought Who Is Mike Jones, right? When back in high school, I was bumping that. I don't have an issue with Mike Jones. I'm just saying that everyone else is Mike Jones. Your highs are your highs. Scarface, UGK, those guys. I was a Chameleon year. I was a huge Chameleon year.
Oh yeah.
I'm not talking about Ryan Dirty. I'm talking about Liverpool. Chameleon can do his thing. But everyone else is just Mike Jones. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Steve has always said, and I don't want to take too much time, but Steve has always said that, Florida hip hop is nothing, right? And listen, I can run down the Trick Daddies, the Rick Ross, Claus. And again, I can say the same thing about Florida. You have your highs who are Ross, and everyone else kind of just Plaus, but there's nothing wrong with Plaus. I'm sure we all had a Plaus song we liked, So, but just to address that right there.
Oh man, dude, my face is hurting. You got me smiling so hard. And that's good, man. I this football thing doesn't work out for you. Can always go into rap commentating, I'm sure.
Music is my second love. So there you
go. Yeah, that's super cool, man. So you obviously spin a lot of plates in the college football world, and you and Steve do the QB Spotlight podcast, and I know you do a long list of other things. And but really, what is your role as it pertains to FIU in their football program?
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to address is I do not have a role within the football program. Sometimes it is construed that I work for FIU. I do not work for FIU. I actually, so my title is a co-managing editor for Underdog Dynasty, which is SB Nation's home for Group of 5 football coverage. So CUSA, the Americans, Sun Belt, Independence. You may even get a little FCS stuff. I head up that website with another guy, Joe Londergan. And my specific beat, so to speak, is FIU. So a lot of my coverage is FIU, and that's where you get the FIU connection in that, kind of the majority of my writing you'll see will be FIU related, but also you'll see a couple, especially during the off season, we do a lot of broad CUSA lists and things of that nature. We like to do interviews with head coaches, had Will Healy, Butch Davis, we're hoping to have a few more on this season. So this off season. So that is my, long list of things I do, but within FIU, I cover FIU.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious, man. What are your personal goals? Like, where do you want to take this career that you're in? It's a really interesting niche that you have going, and you're kind of like, if you don't know this, but you're kind of the envy of a lot of people like myself of like, wow, you get to do this for a living, where a lot of us kind of just do this on the side as a hobby. But, where do you ultimately want to go? Just kind of curious before we get into FIU.
I went to grad school, got a master's in journalism, that whole deal. Started out covering preps in Chicago suburbs, so covered high schools out there. If you've never covered a high school, I know you're dealing with some tough weather right now.
Oh,
Imagine covering high school football and roughly what you're dealing with, and you're out there on the sideline trying to keep stats. It's a rough deal. So did that, and then got to deal with SB Nation and whatnot, and enjoying that and having a lot of fun. Ideally, I would love to do someone's kind of like, if you're familiar with Chris Vanini of The Athletic.
Yeah.
Kind of has a national group of 5 beat. I mean, that would be awesome. Really passionate about G5 football. So that would not coming for Chris's job. I'm not trying to take a job from a brother. I want to make sure, that's he's right down the road from you up there in Texas. I don't want to, take your brother's job, but something like that would be great. But I mean, any way I can, work in sports is awesome. Huge football fan, huge sports fan. And it's just great to be able to watch a game and in this capacity. So
absolutely, man. Well, kind of turning the focus back to, FIU and Conference USA football here, Butch Davis, his time at FIU is somewhat similar to that of, Seth Luttrell's at UNT. Sure. And, Butch Davis had a decent campaign in 2017 and 2018, 2018 being his best, winning 9 games and winning a bowl game against Toledo. But in the past 2 years, the trajectory has kind of been, downward spiral. Especially, with last year with COVID and everything, but it was a pretty rough year. Do you happen to know, like, is his seat hot at all? If so, how hot is his seat going into this next season?
Yeah, sure. So you kind of touched on off the top there, as far as Butch Davis having a lot of success, 2017, 2018, 2019, FIU's never had a 3-year stretch of being able to qualify for bowl games. That was a program record. The outgoing class in 2019, most wins by a 4-year group, all that great stuff, right? But over the last season and a half, which has been it's been 18 games. The 6 and 7, boy, math is not my strong suit here, right?
Yeah.
6 and 7 in 2019, 0 and 5. That'd be 13 games. There we go. There's a reason I write and I don't do math. Over the last 2 seasons, 18 games, FIU's been 6 and 12. That's where the 12 came from. Right. So 6 and 7 in 2019, 0 and 5 in 2020. And is his seat hot? I will say this. He does have 1 year left in his contract, right? And no coach, I don't care.
This year being his last year on the contract?
This year being the last year, the 2021 season. So no coach wants to go into the final year of their contract with some level of uncertainty. And FIU fans were absolutely frustrated given the winless year, right? Now, he and athletic director Pete Garcia, they have a long-standing history back in their days, University of Miami, Cleveland Browns, all that stuff. Pete Garcia's contract is also up at the end of this year and being 2021 season. And they're essentially tied at the hip, right? So, I mean, it's fair to think if success happens for FIU this year, then Butch will get an extension, and one would think that Pete Garcia would as well. I don't want to say that necessarily the seat is hot, right? The only reason I say that is because they could have made that move following the 2020 season, right? When you go winless. They chose not to. And listen, there's one thing that you cannot take away from Butch Davis. No matter it's the 0 and 5, 6 and 7, they've had top 4 recruiting classes in Conference USA. Butch Davis, that name holds weight in South Florida. He has a staff that can recruit. The 6 and 7 record and 0 and 5, it's not for lack of talent. They just have to go and produce on the field. I'm sure you'll ask me, you mentioned about James Morgan being a 4th round pick. Not only did they have an NFL quarterback in 2019, they had an NFL defensive tackle and 2 NFL corners. So that team should have done better. So all in all, I know I'm not like partially answering the question.
No, you're nailing it. Yeah,
absolutely. They want more success, but at the same point in time, you can't say that he hasn't, really changed this program. I'll give you a quick stat, right? If you look at I believe it is quick math here. That's a 19-year program, started 2002. So in the 14 years prior to Butch Davis, right?
Right.
They had a winning percentage, something of like under 300. So I go to show you that, if you take out the Mario football success, this program has not had any real long-standing success. Butch Davis has brought that. So, it's glass half full, glass half empty, how you want to view it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, kind of taking a little closer look at this 21 recruiting class, currently sitting at 4th in the conference, with a few big time, gets in that class, obviously. How's the fan base feeling about this recruiting class? And are you expecting any of them to come in and make, potential impacts, this coming up season?
Yeah, a guy who I'm sure we'll talk about is Savion Collins, who that was the surprise of the 2021 class, right? Someone who had committed to Miami,
Right.
had interest from Florida, had legit Power 5 interest, and he played right next to the #1 defensive tackle in the nation, and Leonard Taylor. That was his teammate.
I did not know that. I did not.
Played right next to him. Right. So
they were both on the same D line in high school.
Both on the same D line, Miami Palmetto. Right.
How did they do? Like, how did that school do?
You know, forgive me. I don't know how they finished. I know they made the playoffs. I don't know how they finished off the top of my head.
That's
what
crazy.
You think, and if my memory serves me correct, that entire D line went D1, went FBS.
Wow.
So
man, that is insane. Quick pause in this. But my nephew plays at All Saints Episcopal out here or he did in fourth, and he had both of the Brockermeyer twins on their offensive line. And so it's just crazy. Sometimes like these O-line, D-lines get these two guys, but man, I did not know that that's crazy. But anyway, back to
So just with Collins, I think, and listen, I am not a big ratings guy. This is something I tweeted out, is that it was 3-star, 4-star. So Savion Collins' composite rating was a 4-star. It was knocked down to a 3, somewhere in between the time of him signing with FIU and a few days before, and that caused a little bit of controversy. Mm-hmm. But you can say something you can actually look at and say is he played on an excellent D-line, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that may have played a part in his recruitment, where some of the bigger schools, maybe they wanted to back off towards the end, and that allowed FIU to come in there. Those schools lost, FIU's gain. You're talking about a team that's allowed over 170 yards rushing in the past 30 games. They've done that 17 times. So they need help on the defensive line, and specifically a defensive tackle. He should be able to slide right in and get a lot of time. Another guy who I think, for FIU fans, they'll be quick to pay attention to is a guy, Artez Hooker out of St. Pete. It's the receiver position is one for FIU, where they lost a transfer in Jeremiah Holloman, former 5-star recruit, South University of Georgia, redshirted in 2019. 2020 was a disaster all the way around for FIU, and he did not live up to the high billing that he came in with, right? Sure. Tyreese Chambers, another one. He was actually an FCS All-American, a finalist for the Jerry Rice Award winner, which is the top FCS player. Came in.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. Just was saying that with Chambers, he came, went to Sacred Heart and now transferring to FIU. So he's a guy who the coaching staff is high on as well. So specifically at the receiver position, where there's room to start immediately, those two guys, and then of course Collins as well. And they've also got some transfers as well, who I think will make an impact immediately.
Right. Do you happen to know how many scholarships, FIU has left for this 21 class, and as well as, are there any key needs they need to address with those remaining scholarships?
This is an unofficial number because no one within the program has confirmed it for me. I've kind of done the math here and there.
Right.
I have it at like 6, but
6 remaining.
Yeah, but the reason I say that's unofficial is because you lose guys to the portals and the portal, and FIU did lose X amount of guys. Now you don't know who's in and who's out, who may be on scholarship at this point, who isn't, until you kind of get around the guys and Butch Davis will make that official. So take that with a grain of salt. It's an unofficial number. But I do think, and also you got to figure out with the guys, Eric Mitchell, former UCF linebacker, former Texas State linebacker, Hal Vinson, they are committed to FIU to play. So that could eat into that number, right? So ballpark, let's say 3 to 5, 3 to 6.
3 to 5, 3 to 6.
But I would definitely think that they are going to address the quarterback position. It's one that they rotated 3 guys in last year. Someone who I know you're familiar with, Grayson James. He's committed to FIU. Grayson James is committed to FIU. They also had a kid, Hayden Carlson, who's the son of former NFL quarterback Jeff Carlson. Butch Davis said during his presser, who Hayden redshirted last year, Butch Davis said that had FIU played an entire 12-game stretch, Hayden would have started 4 or 5 of the games. But the quote, that the money quote was, he kind of reminds me a little bit of that kid in Kansas City. We all know who that kid in Kansas City is, right? And Butch Davis is not a guy who just, is effusive with praise. So to say that is something that really caught my eye. So
that's interesting.
They have those 2 guys, but I do know that there's been some interest in some quarterbacks. A name that has been kind of floated out there, and I do believe that there is some interest, at least from the FIU side, is Alan Bowman, the former Texas Tech quarterback. So that could be a name.
Did they? Is he coming to you guys?
No, well, there's that's a name that I know there's been some interest.
Okay, that's the scuttlebutt.
Right.
Okay,
that
is interesting.
Yeah, but FIU's had interest in a lot of, quite frankly, veteran quarterbacks, right? You go back to James Morgan, get him out of the portal. So Butch Davis is going to look. And they also have a guy, Max Borton-Schlager, who was out of the portal last year. But to answer that, your initial question, quarterback, I would definitely think that they would look to bring in maybe another offensive lineman, another defensive lineman. Those positions, you definitely think you're going to see some additions.
Gotcha. Kind of touching back on, Savion Collins. Do
Yeah.
you happen to know like what went into that decision to, ultimately choose FIU over Miami, Alabama, Florida, and the list goes on and on. And you kind of also piggybacking off of that, when you guys said he was a surprise, when did you guys find out that he was coming to you guys or to FIU?
So I found out that there was interest with Collins about 48 hours prior to actual signing day. And
Early signing day or national signing day?
National signing day.
Okay.
And I can't take credit for initially breaking it. That was, I believe, it was 247 Sports. I want to say it was Andrew Ivins.
Okay.
I hope it was Andrew, because if not, I'm not crediting the right person. But
Okay. Yeah.
they were the first person to make it public.
Mhm.
And then once I was able to confirm that there was interest, actually on signing day, I got a text from a source about 20 minutes prior to Butch Davis's national signing day show, which took place at noon, that, hey, Collins is going to FIU. And then, we were actually on the Zoom call, because when they did their show that they taped for FIU's website, it was not announced on the Zoom call with media. The SID stepped in and said, hey, Collins is official. And then Butch Davis felt, the ability to talk about Collins, and there you go. So it definitely was a quick recruitment. And I'll try to answer the other part of your question, which is, maybe how he ended up at FIU.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? So we know that he decommitted from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely interest with Florida. Now, depending on who you ask, that was maybe as a preferred walk-on. That may have been as a scholarship player.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily know why, because I don't have any sources at Florida, but you would think that they would have been able to find room for a kid who was a border 3-star, 4-star prospect. Maybe all their scholarships were allotted. Who knows? But what Butch Davis said is that they initiated contact with Savion, prior to that 40-hour window. So it wasn't a rough job, right? He said that they had actually, of course, right down the street in Miami Palmetto local. So they had been initiating contact. And what Butch Davis did say is that the big selling point for him was A, being local, and B, FIU had made some defensive changes. Their entire defensive staff really kind of a bit of an overhaul as far as coordinator and position coach. And Butch Davis said that we had to kind of sell him on, hey, we got to get your position coach right, but once we know who that person is, you're going to like him. And clearly that was someone who Savion Collins felt comfortable with.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, that's always surprising whenever guys like our, Conference USA or G5 schools, are able to pull those kind of surprise, recruits here in the fourth quarter. Kind of shifting, a little bit back to the quarterback position, and as it pertains to this 21 class, James Morgan, like we talked on a little bit earlier, drafted in the fourth round. You don't really see a lot of QBs out of Conference USA going that high. Sure. Do you feel like FIU being able to get him drafted and had a big hand in help land Grayson James out of really our backyard at UNT in Duncanville?
That's interesting. You know what I mean? In the sense that, so here's the best way I can answer that question. Former FIU offensive coordinator Rich Skrosky is known for being able to prepare quarterbacks for the next level very well.
Right.
Rich Skrosky sent former Ball State quarterback Keith Wenning to the NFL. Really took Alex Magoo from a guy who was, struggled over his first 3 years, got the most out of his talent, 7th round pick with Seattle, if memory serves me correct.
Right.
Then James Morgan, someone who had an up and down career at Bowling Green, he gets with Coach Skrosky, 4th round pick. If you ask any of those guys, they all will swear that no one prepared them for the scouting process, going up on the board, answering the questions like Rich Skrosky. Now, Rich Skrosky was dismissed prior to Grayson James committing to FIU.
Right.
So, without having talked to anyone specifically, I think Bryn Renner, former North Carolina quarterback, who's currently the FIU quarterbacks coach, I think he was the primary person in his recruitment. And I would have to say, if you had to, put me on the spot and say, hey, this may have been the main factor, I would say that it definitely was that relation with Bryn. And anyone who's talked to Bryn knows Bryn talks to you like this. He's the energy man. He coached cornerbacks in 2019, and the guys there would say, hey, that's the energy man. He's always full of energy. And if you get around him in a room with him, I could see why a recruit, young quarterback would want to play for him. Right.
Yeah.
But that's the best answer I can give you outside of that. And probably just the fact that you can come in and compete for the job immediately. I mean, you know him very well, a Elite 11 finalist. Trent Dilfer raved about him, a great passer in the state of Texas. put it to you this way, and as much as Butch Davis is raved about Hayden Carlson, Texas is probably more well known for putting out quarterbacks in Florida. So you're probably not going to pass up on a Texas quarterback, right? And he ends up at FIU.
Yeah. He's not an early enrollee, is he?
No.
Okay. But yeah, man, he's he's a really big time I feel like get for a really any Conference USA school as it pertains specifically to the quarterback position being I know you're not really all into ratings, but he's rated pretty high, a 0.85 something. And we had a guy came into us in the 2020 class, similar rating, and he flipped and went to Ole Miss kind of at the last second there. But yeah, so that's cool, man. That's always interesting whenever a big time quarterback goes to schools like ours. And but we'll see, man. That's pretty interesting. Well, Eric, I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you so much for coming on. And guys, be sure to give Eric a follow on the Twitters. I'll be sure to tag him when I post this video. And him and Stephen Hammer, they do a great job with the QB Spotlight. And like always, guys, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down low, wherever it is. I don't know, but
down there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere down south. But yeah, once again, Eric, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.